Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Privilege Stacking series. Today, I'm going to talk about personality privilege and how a lot of people end up losing their personality privilege by acting angry all the time, doing constant social justice warrioring, being outraged. And I'm going to talk about why some women feel insecure about acting masculine or why they are sometimes perceived as acting masculine. You guys know me. I believe that femininity is actually not a monolith, but I feel like the reason why some women have feminine privilege and other women don't is due to your actual personality. I really do feel like personality privilege plays a role in people viewing you as feminine because I've noticed that some women almost tend to give off kind of like these toxic masculine traits. And if you think about social justice warrioring or constantly complaining about, not benefiting from pretty privilege, colorism, texturism, featureism, racism, capitalism, and all the other isms, which, by the way, our entire world is bad. Okay, so there's always going to be something bad that you can complain about. I've noticed that people have fake outrage for one ism while simultaneously benefiting from another ism. So I'm going to actually use Barbie Life 2.0 as an example. I've noticed that Barbie Life 2.0 on her YouTube channel, she talks a lot about colorism, texturism, featureism, and stuff like that, and kind of highlights how bad it is and kind of complains about how a lot of unambiguous Black women suffer from those things. But Barbie Life 2.0 has admitted to benefiting from another ism, which is lookism. So that's pretty privilege. So you are benefiting from one ism while complaining about another ism. So you're not actually against isms. You're only against the isms that don't benefit you. And so I've noticed that sometimes when it comes to people with these social justice warrior personality types, a lot of people can actually see through it because human beings are social creatures. Like every person in this world cares about social status, and every human being knows that the world that we live in is bad. We all know that all of the isms exist, not just when it comes to race, but capitalism, classism, socialism, communism. Any ism that you can think of has certain people who may benefit from it and other people who may suffer because of it. So lookism is one of those things. But I've noticed that if you have kind of this social justice advocate personality or almost like this warrior personality, think about what that means psychologically. To be at a constant war with all of the different isms. And by the way, you can't avoid any ism. So, just want to throw that out there. You cannot avoid any ism. So even me as a person of color, obviously, I would still deal with any sort of racism, colorism, texturism, featureism. I could deal with those things as well. But I've noticed that there are some women who spend their lives running away from isms. So they're so scared of facing colorism, texturism, featureism, not benefiting from lookism, not benefiting from capitalism. We saw what happened with Oneswa complaining about how in the United States you get paid for TikTok views, and then in her country you don't get paid for TikTok views. That actually has to do with an ism. That's classism and capitalism. But one of the ways that being a warrior can actually hinder your personality privilege is from burnout. So for example, if you're constantly engaging in activism, if you're constantly talking about, actually, there are downsides to activism as well, because activism, remember, that's still an ism. So you have to be more active in your community or more active online than other people. And so imagine carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders 24/7. Imagine if I'm walking around, I'm scared of colorism, I'm scared of texturism, I'm scared of featureism, I'm scared of racism, I don't benefit enough from capitalism, I'm stressing out about lookism, trying to get my pretty privilege, trying to social climb and benefit from classism. That is extremely exhausting, emotionally and physically. And so think about the type of woman and what kind of personality traits she's going to exhibit if she's got the weight of the world on her shoulders. Those are the types of women who make complaining their entire personality. So have you ever been around like a grumpy old lady or a grumpy old man and they're complaining about everything? You go to a restaurant, they complain about the food. You go to a cafe, they complain there's no air conditioning. You walk at the park, they complain that their knee is hurting, their back is hurting. That's the type of personality I think of when I think of someone who's constantly worried and scared all the time of all of these different isms. And by the way, I'm not just talking about race. I'm talking about any ism you can think of. Another downside of constant social justice warrioring and fake outrage is obviously increased conflict and division. there's no way that you can ever avoid conflict or division. Okay, so going around calling other people divisive or calling my channel divisive or whatever, people divide themselves all the time. The United States is literally divided up into 50 states. We've got different political parties that are divided up. We've got different sectors and counties and cities. Human beings divide themselves all the time. And so, once again, even if you are upset about certain divisions in society, I can tell that you don't understand sociology, because in society as a whole, human beings naturally divide things up as a way of having order and organization. And so, yes, there are good things with that, and then there are bad things with that. But I've noticed that people who have kind of this intense social justice mindset, they're always going to be fighting an uphill battle because the world is not fair. So think about that term, social justice. There will never, ever, ever be complete justice in this world for anything. For your race, your class, your color, your hair texture. There will always be different social stratifications and divisions in society. And so the types of people who are constantly seeking justice, they're actually going to constantly be disappointed because, number one, they're going to see injustices everywhere because there's no such thing as a utopian society where everyone is treated fair and nobody gets stereotyped, nobody's mean to anyone. No, this is not heaven on earth. You're dealing with human beings who are flawed. So if you're constantly seeking after justice, you're going to be constantly disappointed. And by the way, none of this stuff is bad. It's not bad to want social justice. It's not bad to be an activist if that's what you want to be. But just know that by tapping into that, if you tap into it too much, I do believe that it cancels out your personality privilege, because a lot of people will begin to associate your personality with toxic masculine traits. And we will get into that in a few minutes. But if you are constantly upset and outraged and angry about the position that you're in society, this actually can cause you to have more conflict with other people, just random conflict that you didn't have to have. So, for example, a lot of the women who are focused on all of the injustices, instead of spending their time building themselves up or maybe social climbing, getting money for themselves or whatever, these are the types of people that complain online all the time. This kind of reminds me of the men who complain online about dating and modern women. And instead of actually going out and building himself up and maybe becoming more desirable or whatever, chasing after whatever he actually wants in life, he would rather spend all of his time complaining and engaging in conflict with those women that he cannot have. And so people who have this mindset of, if I can't have XYZ privilege, I'm going to be forever mad. Well, obviously that affects your personality, because imagine what happens to your brain when you are in fight or flight mode. So a lot of people, regardless of your race or gender, if you are constantly in this intense state of conflict, you're going to go into fight or flight mode. So these are the people who they might be very aggressive or combative, or like the basic Bettys at work, where no matter what you do, they're very contrarian. They're a disagreeable person. So no matter what you say, they're going to disagree with it. No matter what you do, they're going to call out some sort of flaw. And that's because their brain is in fight mode. So then there are the other people where their brain seems to be more in flight mode. So they kind of recoil back into the abyss. They kind of stay within a certain lane because they feel like, oh, I'll never be able to make it because of my skin tone, or so-and-so's not going to like me because I have 4C hair. So they don't go out and try. So that's an example of flight. So you're spending your entire life running away from the isms that you're scared of, rather than, overcoming the fear of isms and understanding that there's no way to actually escape any isms. And you're actually better off just utilizing whatever isms you happen to benefit from so that you can, I guess, succeed or do your best to stay away from the situations you don't want to be in. And yes, we know that's bad. All the isms are bad, of course, but there's no way that we can avoid it. So this channel talks about reality. But another negative of kind of the social justice warrior personality is constant echo chambers. So I understand having some sort of an echo chamber, or a safe space is what I like to call it. There is a time and place for an echo chamber. That's totally fine. But if you are so entrenched in your echo chamber to where you have an unrealistic expectation that all 7 billion people on this earth are going to be agreeing with your echo chamber, this is where you get the people who literally get pissed off when you have a different opinion, or, they get mad at the Storytime series on this channel because they don't like hearing the life stories of other women that have different experiences than them. but they want you to listen to their stories. So if you spend too much time revolving your whole identity around some sort of echo chamber, it actually takes away from your multiculturalism. It takes away from your ability to have a fluid identity because you're only engaging in one space, you're only engaging in one community. And I think the difference with our community, like with the Exoticals and stuff, is we don't actually have a real life community. So we don't have to worry about having extreme, intense echo chambers versus other communities where they have actual racial and ethnic groups, or maybe they live in the same city that they've always lived in, they live in their same home state that they've always lived in. That creates monoculturalism, and I do believe that multiculturalism is a privilege. I think that monoculturalism is not as much of a privilege as being able to interact with people who have different viewpoints. And so I feel like that has to do with toxic masculinity, because think about those guys who, no matter what you say, it's wrong. You know, if you don't go along with what he says, it's wrong. The my way or the highway personality type, that actually is considered to be a toxic masculine trait. And so if somebody has kind of this my way or the highway personality trait, and if you don't date me, you're racist. If you don't like me, you're colorist. If you don't praise me, you're colorist. If you don't praise me, you're texturist, you're featurist, you're classist. People who have the my way or the highway personality all the time, that is unfortunately going to be associated with a toxic masculine personality. Another thing that can happen with the social justice warrior personality type is it actually puts a strain on your relationships, because if you are very passionate about advocating for something and then your friends or family or boyfriend, whatever, is not as passionate as you, there are people who literally get mad at this. So once again, this still ties into that my way or the highway toxic masculine trait, kind of almost like this dominant aggressive masculine trait where it's like, you need to listen to me, you can't subscribe to anyone else on YouTube, you can't join any other groups, you need to have the same political view as me. So it's almost this cult-like mentality. And once again, people associate that with kind of being this domineering person. Another issue with the social justice archetype is you're risking oversimplification. So if you are only in one culture, or if you only speak from your perspective, or you only want to listen to people who have your exact same phenotype, exact same race, exact same skin tone, hair texture, political views, sometimes if you spend all of your time only listening to those people, there are always going to be holes in your talking points. Every single person on this earth has holes in their talking points. I don't have perfect talking points. You don't have perfect talking points. Nobody has perfect intelligence with no gaps in knowledge. There's actually no such thing. And so the issue with being a social justice warrior is that sometimes a person can actually lack nuance because they're not in a diverse environment. And so this is what leads to the different phobias, like homophobia, or maybe you are fearful of mixed race people, you're fearful of white people, you're fearful of light-skinned black women, you're fearful of biracial people. I really do feel like some people, they've spent so much time kind of oversimplifying everything to the point where they have a fear of light-skinned women. They have a fear of colorism. They have a fear of black men, or a fear of texturism, whatever ism they're scared of. Another thing that happens is, obviously, if you're constantly exposed to the injustices faced within your group, that's going to take a toll on your mental health. We all know that if you watch too much news and stuff, it can cause stress or anxiety, or it can cause you to feel hopeless. And so I really do feel like when it comes to a lot of the colorism, texturism, and featurism YouTube channels on here, a lot of those women actually just contributed to Black women having more mental health issues, more stress, more anxiety, and feeling more hopeless than before. Because you're literally telling people Black men are colorist, Indian are colorist, Hollywood is colorist. And it's like you're discouraging people in a way, because what if there's a dark-skinned Black girl who wanted to go into Hollywood, but she's too scared of the isms, or she's scared of being bullied to the point where she doesn't even step into the spotlight in the same way that she could. Normani. That's where you get women who have those types of mental health issues, because they're in flight mode. So they don't have that same carefree femininity that a lot of other women possess, because they're not carefree. They do care. They care about everything. They literally care about every single ism on the earth, every injustice, their family members being affected. They have the weight of the world on their shoulders. So carefree literally means you don't care. It means you don't care about anything. That's literally what that phrase carefree means. But another thing that can cause women to lose their personality privilege, I actually went into ChatGPT and I said to name some toxic masculine traits. And it's interesting because it says number 4 is hypercompetitiveness. So these are the women who overemphasize competing with non-black women for rich men, competing with everybody on earth to be the prettiest girl in the bar. You know, you're competing with 4 billion other women instead of being more self-focused. It's a very external locus of control. And you kind of feel like you're winning or losing depending on who you're competing against. That is actually associated with a toxic masculine trait. And so it can ruin your feminine privilege if you have a hyper-competitive mindset. You're always focused on, well, what does she have? Well, how are black men treating her? Well, how are these white men treating her? Well, does she think she's better than me? Does she think she's more privileged than me? You know, it's a hyper-competitive mindset. You're constantly focused externally. You're focused on like what's going on with the other women around you. People associate that with masculinity, just like how they associate dominance and aggression, kind of this groupthink mindset, which requires dominance and aggression. People associate that with masculinity as well. And so whenever people come on my channel or when they try to say, oh, Exoticals United, so-and-so person didn't agree with your talking point, or what do you think of this person who has a different opinion? I don't really care because I don't have an over dominant and aggressive type of thing going where I want everybody to agree with me, or like if somebody has a different talking point, I'm going to go out of my way to like nitpick them and bully them and try to like drag them or come for their personal life or just start insulting them in hopes that I can domineer and aggressively work my way under their skin so that they agree with me. People associate that with toxic masculinity. Another thing that people associate with masculinity and it hinders personality privilege is misogyny. So if you say things that are male-centered all the time, she got the same black man, people associate that with misogyny because you're saying that that woman kind of deserved how she was treated or that, you know, she should have chose better. You're using the same misogynistic talking points as men. You're literally saying should have chose better, got the same black man. Or you're making fun of single mothers, baby mothers. That's the same thing that misogynistic men do. And so that's another thing that actually hinders women's feminine privilege in terms of their personality. This is another reason why some people are viewed as masculine, because they're actually operating in dominance and aggression, because if you disagree with them, they'll argue, they'll insult you, they'll do all these live streams about you. Number 2 is internalized misogyny. So they will project that onto others. And then they'll say, you know, short hair is masculine, wearing pants is masculine. Who used to say stuff like that? Oh, black men in the church. You literally sound like a black Baptist preacher telling women that they can't wear pants. So people associate misogyny with toxic masculinity. So this is why people will say sometimes this person is masculine or they act masculine, or this is why some women, they can't tap into their feminine personality privilege because they say too many things that people clock as being masculine. I've noticed something else that a lot of women do, and it hinders their personality privilege, is believing in extremely rigid gender roles. So going back to the whole, oh, women shouldn't be shown with pants and short 4C hair in the media. Well, once again, you're actually kind of promoting a rigid gender role. You're kind of saying that femininity can only be expressed if you're wearing a dress or if you have long hair. And by the way, those things are feminine, but I do believe that a person can still be feminine. She can be feminine with short hair. Look at Toni Braxton, look at Amber Rose, look at Halle Berry. And as far as wearing pants or being shown in the media with pants on, plenty of women are still feminine while wearing pants. And so sometimes when women promote these overly rigid gender roles and then they say things like, well, Ice Spice, you know, she's a bad representation. She is not feminine. Ice Spice definitely has both pretty privilege and she also has feminine privilege. She literally shakes her ass and is known for her feminine body shape. So she's expressing her femininity, but it's just in a different way. She's using her sexuality to express her femininity. And I understand that if you're conservative, maybe you won't agree with that. But the women who have these overly rigid gender roles, sometimes they may be seen as masculine because, once again, it's kind of promoting almost like this internalized misogyny where it's like women can only be seen in one way. You have to be a trad wife in a long dress with long hair like it's the 1950s, otherwise you're not feminine. But anyone who actually has feminine privilege in terms of their personality, they know that they can be just as feminine, you know, no matter what they're doing. Another thing I've noticed that causes women to lose their personality privilege is suppressing their emotions. A lot of people associate suppressed emotions with masculinity. A lot of toxic masculine men are known for not showing vulnerability, you know, not apologizing and stuff. They're afraid to be sad about something. They're afraid to be seen as insecure. They're afraid to be seen as sensitive. And so if a woman behaves in that same way, unfortunately, people will associate that with toxic masculinity. And so she's going to lose some of her personality privilege. I feel like when it comes to the women who have a magnetic personality, they're not afraid to show a range of emotions. So if you're excited, if she's excited, she might jump up and down. If she's happy, she might smile. If she's sad, she may cry. She may say, hey, I'm sad about this, or I'm upset because things didn't work out. A truly feminine woman, or a woman who has personality privilege, she knows how to apologize when she's wrong, or like, if she says something bad or says something wrong, she knows how to come forward and be like, oh, I messed up on this particular thing, or hey, I wanted to fix what I said about this thing. All of those things are a sign of maturity. People like being around women who are mature. That's a part of personality privilege. Think about the person you know who has the best personality. What qualities does she have? Is she funny? Because being funny, that's another part of expressing your emotions. Have you ever been around women who are so scared of social faux pas? They're so scared of being perceived a certain way to the point where they can't even joke around. They can't even smile. They're literally walking around with like a straight face. They take themselves too seriously, basically, because they are emotionally suppressing themselves. They're suppressing their true carefree nature. They're basically the opposite of carefree. They give too many fucks. They care too much about what people think of them wearing pants, what people think of them wearing their hair short and it's 4C, or they're too scared of, oh my God, this person might be colorist. Oh, I have to suppress myself. I can't express certain emotions. Another sign of emotional repression is you can only express a small amount of emotion. So for example, the people who are only good at expressing anger, they don't know how to express joy. They don't know how to express happiness or love or kindness. They don't know how to reconcile. They don't have conflict resolution skills. All of those skills, all of those soft skills can actually take away from someone's personality privilege. When I think of kind of like positive feminine personality traits, it's funny because one of the critiques that I actually got on this channel is someone said that I'm catty, or that I am catty with unambiguous Black women when I'm talking in my videos, but they don't realize that they still associated me with femininity because they compared me to a cat. Cats are traditionally known, and feline creatures, both, are traditionally stereotyped as being hyper feminine. Think about the cat eye. A lot of cats are associated with femininity because they're graceful, they're mysterious. Cats, they're not the same as dogs. Think about puppy dogs and how they follow you around and then they go and like fuck shit up. They go and mess up the entire living room and stuff. But cats are known for independence. People associate cats with like sensuality, fertility, intuition. Oftentimes in some spiritualities, cats are actually symbols of goddesses. So notice how even if somebody insults you and they call you catty, that means that you actually have feminine privilege in their eyes because they're still actually comparing you to a feline-like creature, or they're comparing you to an animal that is often associated with femininity, as opposed to comparing you with some sort of more masculine archetype. When I think of animals that are associated with masculine archetypes, I think of bears, I think of rhinoceros, I think of like maybe even a horse or something like that, maybe even like a dragon. I associate different animals and creatures with more masculine archetypes, but notice how even if somebody insults you and they call you catty, you can actually dissect that word catty. When you think of a catty woman, what do you think of? Because when I think of an image of a catty woman in my mind, I'm actually thinking of Megan Fox in some of those teen movies that I used to watch. I don't think of like Amy Schumer or like somebody who's extremely overweight and considered undesirable in the eyes of a lot of people. I think of a beautiful feminine woman actually, who is maybe like assertive. That's what I think of when I think of a catty woman. Maybe I'll do a whole psychoanalysis on the archetype of being catty and how that's actually proof that you still have feminine privilege even when you're showing toxic traits. And that's actually a part of building personality privilege. Personality privilege really means that no matter what you do or say, people still associate your personality with positive qualities, whether it's being intelligent. I've noticed that on this YouTube channel, when I observe people who critique me, they try to call me a master manipulator. They think I'm so clever and I'm just like systematically trying to destroy the image of Black women. So they're actually giving my personality a privilege. They're associating my personality with intelligence. So because of the way I articulate myself on here, they think that I'm so smart to the point where I can just manipulate tens of thousands of people and just trick all of these innocent, unambiguous black women into watching my channel, and then I just make them feel bad over time. So do you see how people can actually end up putting your personality on a pedestal even if you are exhibiting negative traits? Because I do think that, I am slightly toxic. I can definitely have my catty, my clap back and stuff like that. But I'm actually not afraid of showing those sides of myself because it still contributes to my feminine personality privilege. It still contributes to me showing a range of emotions on here, and I'm not afraid of that. But if a woman is so scared of what other people think of her, I've noticed some women are scared of stereotypes. They're scared of being stereotyped negatively. They're scared of being the angry black woman. They're scared of being seen as aggressive or being seen as combative. I don't have those same insecurities. And so I don't have a problem coming on here and saying curse words, or the women where sometimes they might be scared of saying curse words. I used to be one of those women where I didn't want to say curse words because I associated it with, oh, that means you're acting masculine, or it ties into having the rigid gender roles, to where you feel like the only way to be feminine is if you don't curse, if you're always happy and smiley. And I've noticed that the more you broaden your perspective on femininity, the more you can actually tap into like a feminine personality privilege, or just personality privilege in general. But if I think of tying in feminine privilege with personality privilege, I'm thinking about empathy. So sharing the feelings of others. So I do feel like I have empathy, but I practice selective empathy on YouTube. I try to only give the gift of empathy to those who personally show empathy towards me. So if somebody is not personally showing empathy towards me, like as a content creator or something, then I'm not going to show it towards them. But another way you can actually increase your personality privilege is showing empathy towards yourself and saying, hey, even though I may have messed up last night or whatever, or I may have made a mistake, I still radically accept myself. I still love myself. I forgive myself. I've noticed that some people, they never forgive themselves for their past mistakes, and they're so scared of making that same mistake again, to the point where it hinders their personality expression. So for example, let's say you've always wanted to be the funny girl. Maybe that's a part of personality privilege that you've always wanted to have. But one time, maybe you made a joke and it was a bad joke, or people got offended by it. So now you're scared of making jokes. Now you're scared of laughing at things. Now you're scared of making certain comments because you don't want people to like get offended. So do you see how that one experience, it actually shaped your personality? This is why I say some women aren't privilege stacking. They're actually trauma stacking. Their whole personality is actually based on trauma. Their brain, the way that their brain is operating, is in constant fight or flight mode, or they're hypersensitive to what people think of them. And when I say hypersensitive, what I mean is extremely easily offended, or feeling like everyone is your enemy, never feeling safe enough to express yourself emotionally. I mean, I can't imagine living in such a mental prison to where I can't even make a joke because I'm so scared people will get offended, or I can't disagree with someone, I can't have a different opinion. This is actually where social anxiety comes from. Social anxiety hinders your personality privilege because you can't express yourself, because you're too scared of people maybe doing something bad to you, or people being your enemy. This is why I try to promote exposure therapy. So exposure therapy is when you expose yourself to a social setting where in the past maybe you would have been scared to do that. So this is why I talk about social climbing, because that's a part of it. It's about overcoming the social anxiety. So maybe you don't feel celebrated in white spaces, but you feel celebrated in black spaces. Okay, then go to the black spaces. Who cares what everybody else says? Who cares what the divestors say? Who cares what all of these other maybe white-centered or white-identified people say? Different things work for different people. This is why I say that I do agree with the concept of going where you're celebrated, because that helps you to expose yourself to more social situations, and then you build social skills. Personality privilege is really also about social skills. So how do you interact with other women? How do you interact with men? How do you collaborate with content creators? Let's say you're a content creator. Are you one of those people who doesn't have the social skill maybe at this time? Maybe you don't have the skills to interact with colleagues or business partners and stuff like that. Maybe you don't know how to network. All of that stuff is a part of personality privilege. And I've noticed that some women are really good at this. So I'm actually thinking of Ice Spice and Baby Storm. And if what Baby Storm said is true, she said that she introduced Ice Spice to her friends and that her friends were so enamored by Ice Spice and Ice Spice was so likable to the point where they were willing to go out of their way to help Ice Spice to launch her entire music career. So imagine being a musician, being in Baby Storm's position, and maybe because you lack the social skills, which I can say I've actually witnessed Baby Storm not having social skills because I've watched some of her videos where she accused people at Target of being racist when they weren't being racist. So imagine not having those social skills and then you have a friend who is just magnetic. She's beautiful, she's feminine, or she's ratchet like Ice Spice, and she's still seen as feminine because that's how far her femininity privilege can go, to where she can twerk or whatever and it's not a problem. She's not scared of people saying you're being masculine by twerking. I've noticed some people, they don't dance or they're scared to be seen as slutty. I used to be that way. So by the way, I'm not shaming anybody, whether you're religious or whatever, but I used to be that way too when I was very Christian, where it's like, oh no, I don't want to listen to music with cussing. I don't want to cuss. I don't want to wear short shorts or be seen dancing because it comes off as like masculine or trying to draw attention to myself, and that's bad. But if you have enough personality privilege, and especially if you care about femininity privilege in terms of your personality, guess what? You can do damn near anything you want, and people are still gonna like you. That's called being likable. So in Ice Spice's case, if what Baby Storm said is true, that means that Ice Spice has a fantastic personality privilege, and she's very likable. That would mean that she's likable in real life. And actually, I would argue that Ice Spice is multicultural because I've seen her engage with Nicki Minaj, even though Nicki Minaj had beef with her later on or something. I've seen her with Baby Storm. I've seen her with Taylor Swift. I've seen her with so many different people. And so when you think of women who do not have personality privilege, these women, they're constantly beefing with someone, or the only time they talk to you is so they can complain about something. They're always complaining about relationship drama, family drama, their boyfriend's not getting along with them. All their friends are fake. If you think of the common denominator is always you. And by the way, everything I say on YouTube is geared towards myself as well. So I don't want you guys to take me as some sort of advice channel to where I'm on a pedestal and I'm speaking down or preaching at you and you have to follow me. I don't even want to be seen as an advice channel. This is really just, I'm kind of thinking out loud, and then if you guys relate, then great. But if I think of another kind of positive feminine personality trait, I'm actually thinking of a nurturing personality. So for example, you care about and you are concerned about the well-being of others. So you don't have to care about everyone. I feel like that's where some women get it wrong. They think that people-pleasing is feminine. I would say that is kind of falling over into what I would call weak femininity or toxic femininity. It's like the people-pleasing type. But when I think of someone who's nurturing, this means that you actually keep the same energy for those who nurture you. So if you're a woman with children, you're nurturing your children. No, you're not nurturing everybody else's children. You're not babysitting everybody else and being an unpaid nanny, but you are nurturing others who are important to you. So I like to save my nurturing qualities for myself and for the people I care about. And that's it. Because I don't owe everybody my empathy. So when people come on my channel and they say, you don't have enough empathy for men, because I have a decentering men series. You don't have enough empathy for other women because you talk about certain things and disagree with other females or whatever. Guess what? I don't owe everybody my empathy or my nurturing traits. I get to be selective. I get to practice selective empathy and selective nurturing. So if I want to nurture the Exoticals or I want to nurture the Pretty Girl Club, which is the subscribers to this channel, that's who my nurturing energy can go to. So I don't owe everybody on the internet all of my nurturing energy. So I feel like one of the ways you can actually increase your feminine personality privilege is by practicing selective nurturing. So it's nurturing yourself, only nurturing those who care for you, not just giving it away freely, because that's valuable. Having empathy, first of all, having anybody in your life that actually gives an F about you, AKA someone who's empathetic, that is a privilege, okay? So I'm not handing out empathy privilege, just handing it out like a flyer on the street, just giving it to everybody and anybody. No, I'm only going to show empathy if I feel that it's going to be reciprocated somehow, or if I feel like you are my ally. But if you're not my ally, You don't get my free empathy. You don't get free nurturing. Like random men who treat me like trash. No, you don't get free empathy. You don't get free nurturing. And so I also feel like a part of personality privilege is the ability to set boundaries and the ability to be selective with your positive traits. So, hey, I'm only showing empathy to certain people. I'm only going to show nurturing qualities to certain people. Another part of feminine personality privilege that I've noticed in my real life and online is women who are collaborative. So women who value cooperation or teamwork, maybe they seek consensus. So for example, when I think about the way I do this YouTube channel, I've never seen anybody else do their YouTube channel like how I do this one, because I will do polls on my channel and I will actually curate my content based on the poll results. So for example, we voted on what color is light skin. You guys voted on Fenty 390 and above, and I have an international audience. And so I try to collaborate with the people who subscribe to this channel, because that's actually, number one, it's benefiting my channel to make content that's relatable, but also that increases my credibility because of my personality privilege in that case, where people know, oh, she's willing to collaborate with others. She values cooperation if you are a reciprocal type of person, not if you're fake. And of course, sometimes it's going to burn you. Sometimes you will find people who will try to use you and stuff. But for me, about 90% of the time, both on and offline, about 90% of the time, it's worked well. So once again, I feel like an example of toxic femininity is when you allow people to bully you when you're collaborating, or maybe you are desperately trying to ride other people's coattails. I would call that toxic femininity. I actually believe that a lot of men have toxic feminine traits where they're trying to ride your coattails. You know, they're trying to be your lapdog. They're trying to kind of copy whatever you're doing, or they hope that you will build them up. I feel like that's actually more of a toxic feminine trait. But another part of personality privilege, and I personally tie this to femininity as well, is intuition. So have you ever met these women where they're so intuitive, they can always spot a good opportunity? She is so good at setting boundaries. You know, she's very good at like kind of intuitively knowing what makeup looks good on her, what clothes look good on her, what environment works best for her. I mean, it seems like she just has it all together. That is absolutely a part of personality privilege. It's having that strong sense of intuition. So knowing how to rely on your gut feeling or your instincts, that's incredible. I mean, that's a huge privilege in terms of your personality. Like if you are intuitive, and also if you are a decisive woman, oh, it's over. Like you absolutely have personality privilege, because I've noticed sometimes the women who are indecisive, these women, you know, maybe they want to create a YouTube, but they don't know what to talk about. Or maybe they start a business, they don't know what to do. They're constantly kind of like swaying with the wind. They're kind of going with whoever's popular, following whatever trends are online, or following what their family members are doing. But if you are decisive and you're like, no, this is what I'm doing. I stand 10 toes down on it, like it or not. I'm going to college. I'm moving away. I'm decentering men, or I'm going to be child free, or I'm one and done, whatever. That's actually a part of personality privilege as well, because people will perceive you as someone who believes in yourself. So deciding, hey, this is my style, you know, bohemian clothes, that's my style. Having the bright Barbie looking outfits and the neon colors, that's my style. That shows decisiveness. It shows confidence. Being able to make a decision regardless of like what other people think, that is a huge part of personality privilege. Another thing is emotional intelligence. So I noticed that when a lot of people talk about emotional intelligence, they're only referencing it in terms of relationships. And yes, it's important when it comes to your friends or your family members and stuff, kind of being able to pick up on their emotions. But I consider emotional intelligence privilege to be in tune with your own emotions. So knowing what are my depression triggers? What are my happiness triggers? What makes me feel more confident? What makes me feel more insecure? What are my sources of micro-validation? What are my sources of micro-insecurity? What are my former traumas that I'm overcoming? What mistakes have I made in the past where I never want to make those mistakes again? I feel like all of that is a part of being in tune with your own emotions. And so that's going to help you in terms of personality privilege, because then you know how to move in this world. Another thing that I've noticed a lot of women are bad at is adaptability. So being flexible, being open to change, being willing to adjust. So if your viewpoints are outdated, like have you ever met those aunties where their viewpoints are outdated? They're very rigid, they have a closed mind, they're extremely monocultural to the point where they make ignorant comments like, Black people don't go swimming, Black people don't go hiking, Black people don't go canoeing. So they're literally unable to adapt to new circumstances because they're not flexible. They can't adjust, they have no resilience. Or the people who are so scared of isms to the point where they can't come out of their shell because they're so scared. They're scared of being perceived as maybe the angry Black woman, so then they can't report someone at work who is going against their boundaries. They can't speak up for themselves because they're so scared of being perceived as angry. These are the people who lack adaptability. So I would say if you are very adaptable, you have personality privilege. One of the ways that you know that you're adaptable is if people insult you and they try to call you fake. And they say, well, you're a fake person. Well, what they're really saying is you're good at adapting to new circumstances and social climbing, utilizing different personality traits and using selective authenticity. That's really what somebody means when they say, well, you're fake as an insult. They really mean you're adaptable. Have you ever been around the people who shame you for changing? So I've noticed even here on YouTube, if I make content about a different topic, or if I talk about a different series, like if I do a new series or something, there will be some people who will literally say, you're talking about new topics now. You're trying to change your content. You're trying to pander to XYZ group. You're pandering to the decentering men stuff. You're pandering about this. You're pandering about Blackness. You're pandering about this. So what they're saying is, I am not adaptable. And I don't know how to be flexible or open to change. I don't know how to adjust to new circumstances. So when I see someone else doing it, I'm going to call it pandering. I'm going to call it fake. I'm going to call it being a sellout. And anytime people use phrases like that, you're fake, you're a panderer, you're a sellout, what they're saying is, I am angry that you are adapting. I'm angry that you're flexible when it comes to being in new circumstances. And so if you've had anyone give you those types of insults, that's actually a sign that you have a personality privilege, which is called adaptability. You're adaptable. You know how to interact with Black people, white people, colorist people, texturist people, featurist people. You can get what you want out of anybody, out of any circumstance. It doesn't matter if they're a bad person, a good person, a dusty person, a rich person. You are so adaptable to the point where literally you can get what you want. Everybody likes you. You're able to get your points across. You're a good communicator. You're flexible. You know how to interact with people. You can walk into any room and you don't have an inferiority complex. Because I've noticed that women who are not adaptable and they don't have that personality privilege, they can't walk into a nice restaurant and feel okay. Maybe they can't walk into a white neighborhood without the fear of people being racist and stuff. Or they feel inferior if they're around rich white people, or they feel inferior if they're around Black men or whatever group, because they don't have the adaptability privilege that comes with personality privilege. They don't have that. They have not developed that quality because the fear of isms is actually holding them back from that adaptability. And I also feel like it's impossible to divest or to be multicultural if you lack adaptability. Because trust me, if you're going to be around people of different cultures who know nothing about Blackness or they know nothing about 4C hair, they're absolutely going to say something ignorant because they literally are ignorant. They don't know about 4C hair or about internalized texturism and all that. And so if you're the type of person who wants to increase your personality privilege and you want to be multicultural, then learning how to adapt to people's ignorance, literally learning how to adapt to people's ignorance and then how to combat it in a way to where they understand you and stuff and explain yourself, that actually helps you to have personality privilege. So anybody who makes comments like, why, it's not my job to educate people, it's not my job to do this, it's like, okay, so then don't get mad if they're uneducated about you. Don't get mad if nobody knows shit about you. Don't get mad then if nobody knows you, nobody invites you to anything. Well, they didn't invite me to the party, they didn't invite me to the cookout. Well, yeah, because you didn't want to adapt to having new friendships or to interacting with different people. So if you don't want to adapt, that's fine. Just don't get mad when you're excluded, because adaptability comes with privilege. In fact, I think that adaptability is one of the biggest privileges, personality privileges, that people get jealous of when it comes to multicultural people. Notice how I said multicultural. I didn't say multiracial, because you can actually be multicultural and monoracial. You can be a multicultural white person, a multicultural Black or Asian person. All that means is you literally know how to adapt in a new culture. Maybe you can adapt to the language. You know how to speak multiple languages. You know how to, you listen to certain music from other cultures and stuff. You engage in the media. And that's another thing, by the way. Another way that you know that you have adaptability privilege in your personality is people will insult you by saying, you jump in and out of Blackness at your convenience. What they really mean is you are multicultural. You participate in Black culture only sometimes, and then you participate in other cultures at other times. And it's like, well, no shit, Sherlock. What are you doing? Are you telling me that you don't participate with other cultures because you're that scared of people being either racist, colorist, sexist, or featurist? Or are you telling me that you're so prejudiced against other non-Black people to the point where you only want to be in Black spaces and that's it? That sounds like a very boring life. If I want Italian food, I'm going to go to an Italian restaurant. So yes, I am technically jumping out of Blackness because I'm going to a non-Black restaurant. If I want to listen to Taylor Swift, I am technically jumping out of Blackness because I'm listening to a non-Black musician. I thought that everybody did this. I thought this was a part of being an American. You're naturally adaptable, you're multicultural, you interact with other cultures. But for some people, they are scared of other cultures. They're scared of interacting with other people. They're scared of what people will think about them listening to Taylor Swift or about them going hiking. They're scared of other people saying, Black people don't go hiking. Black people don't go mountain climbing. Another part of personality privilege is communication. So being able to skillfully express your thoughts and your emotions and your ideas clearly and effectively. So this means that if you're talking about something controversial, you know how to explain the nuances of it. You don't make statements like Indians are colorist, period. And then that's it. And then you don't say anything else because there are always going to be people who don't understand what you meant, or they don't understand your background or where you're coming from or why you said that. So being a skillful communicator is more about being able to explain the who, what, when, where, and why of what you believe, or expressing your thoughts, your emotions. Okay, I feel sad. Why do I feel sad? Did something trigger me into making me feel sad? Why do I feel like she thinks she's better than me? What triggered that? Is it because of how she's dressed? Is she dressed better than me? And so is my brain associating her nice clothes with stuck-up rich people or something? So communication, not just with others, but also being able to communicate with yourself, that's a part of personality privilege, because you're going to end up being way more mentally healthy than the person who doesn't know how to communicate their thoughts and feelings. Did you know that I actually love blocking people or cutting people off and then being able to succinctly explain why I'm blocking them? So for example, in the dating scenarios and stuff, I enjoy leaving like maybe one sentence about, why I'm ghosting. So for example, one time I had a date with a guy when I was single, and he told me that he smokes weed. I don't smoke, and I don't want a boyfriend who smokes weed and stuff, because there's all kinds of other stuff that comes with that, such as, you're spending lots of money. The average person spends hundreds of dollars a month on weed and stuff if they smoke. So I remember one time I went on this bad date, and not only did the guy tell me he smoked, he then went on to attempt to convince me to become a smoker. And he tried to tell me like all the spiritual reasons behind it and stuff. Basically, he was attempting to almost brainwash me, it seemed like, on the date. And so I enjoyed, like when he tried to call me again or tried to ask me out, I actually enjoyed responding via text and saying, oh, no thanks, because I don't want to be with a guy that smokes or tries to change me. And then that was it. And then I just hit the block button. So I didn't even get to see what he said in response. So if you're a good communicator, that actually plays into your personality privilege, because not only can you make friends and stuff, or like restore friendships or relationships, but you can also properly cut people off or set boundaries, because you know how to talk. You know how to say what you need to say. Have you ever been around those people who, if they get angry, they can't express their thoughts without simply insulting you or saying, well, you're ugly? You know those people who are bad communicators to where they can't address any of your talking points. Very similar to the girl who wore the refrigerator-shaped t-shirt that I put a video up about the other day, where she actually couldn't argue with any of the talking points over here. And so because of her lack of communication skills, instead of going point by point, bar for bar, with whatever she disagreed with, all she could say was, you're ugly. You're not an exotical. And that's it. And it's like, that's not a skillful way of expressing your ideas. Nobody's going to really be on your side or rally behind you if you're not a good communicator. So that's another thing. I have never met a good leader who's a bad communicator. Just saying. Another part of personality privilege is having a strong imagination. It's creativity, being able to come up with new ideas, coming up with solutions. Did you know that it actually requires creativity for you to come up with solutions to problems? When it comes to this colorism, texturism, featureism discourse online, have you ever noticed that a lot of the channels who came before this one, they never offered any solutions? They didn't offer any solutions. All they said was, everybody's colorist, everybody's texturist, everybody's featurist. Look at this colorist, look at that colorist, look at this colorist, look at that colorist. And it's like, where's the solution? I know that there is no solution to systemized or systematic racism and all the other isms, but guess what? At least this channel offers solutions to internalized colorism, texturism, featureism. This channel names multiple different solutions. I talk about fluid identities on here, overcoming internalized texturism, colorism, and featureism. I talk about privilege stacking on here, social climbing on here. I mean, there are literally, you're going to find dozens of different solutions, and you get to pick whichever solution works best for you. That is a part of creativity. That's a part of your personality privilege, being able to come up with creative solutions to your problems. Another thing that I've noticed in people who have personality privilege is they are actually empowering. So to be empowering, it means that you're supporting and encouraging others. So giving social commentary, that's not the fullness of empowerment. That's only scratching the surface. So if you just tell people cautionary tales and that's all you do is warn people all the time, eventually people are going to get tired of that because, once again, people who want to be supported and encouraged, they're looking for solutions. They don't want to just be warned all the time, like, oh, this person's a colorist, that person's a texturist, that person's a featurist. Don't go outside without your coat on. You're going to get sick. You need to carry pepper spray. You need to do this. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, at some point, all of the cautionary tales are going to be told. And so, generally speaking, anybody who's intelligent would know to protect themselves, whether it's physically or emotionally. So the next step to having an empowering personality is knowing how to support other people, knowing how to encourage other people around you, helping other people to recognize their strengths and achieve their goals. That's a huge personality privilege because most people are negative. Let's think about it. Most of your friends or family members or people you've been around, a lot of them don't have a positive, encouraging mindset. This is why I don't like lukewarm friendships. I will cut you off. If you don't compliment me, if you're not like making me aware of my strengths and like helping me achieve my goals or encouraging me, I don't want you in my life because I know that I'm the type of friend where I'm going to call out the pretty parts of your outfit. I'm going to call out all of your strengths in your business. I'm going to notice the best things about you and constantly remind you of your own greatness. And that's actually a gift. And so I'm not freely giving my empowerment away to others who don't give it back. I don't like friendships where it's not reciprocal. So if you're the type of friend who's hanging out with my ops, or if I see you critiquing me behind my back or critiquing me to my face at any time, like remember those girls in high school where maybe it's prom night and then they compliment everybody else's prom dress and then they don't compliment yours? I don't like those types of friends, or friends who want to hang out with my critics, friends who want to hang out with people who are not really there for me. They're not really like in my corner. I don't want anybody around me like that because I know that I'm an empowering person. So I only want friends around me who empower me as well and who are supporting me as well. So friends who are reciprocating. So that's why I like to practice selective empowerment. If you are my friend, yes, I will be as supportive and as encouraging and as nice as I can possibly be. But if I'm not getting that reciprocated, if I don't feel you empowering me, if I'm always the one encouraging you and building you up and then you're not doing it with me, I'm not doing it. Another thing I've noticed that is a huge part of personality privilege is resilience. Resilience is something that a lot of women lack. I've noticed a lot of women, they're not resilient against colorism. They're not resilient against texturism, featureism, racism, whatever. And so they'll spend their lives running away from potential bad things when in reality, first of all, 90% of your fears will like never come to pass. You know how you have fears in your mind, like random fears of heights or whatever? Most of the time, those things don't even come to pass. But having resilience actually means that you have strength in the face of adversity. So if I want to be resilient against colorism, that means that I still have strength and dignity right there sitting in the face of colorists. So no, I'm not going to go hide off of the internet and then wait 5 years to release my album because I'm afraid that my audience is going to be colorist against me. No, I'm not going to spend my life wishing that I looked a different way or wishing that I was somebody else because I'm so scared of different isms. That means you actually lack resilience. Resilience is demonstrating strength in the face of adversity or hardship. So if you never want to face the adversity, if you're scared of even facing colorism, you're scared of facing texturism, racism, or whatever, that means you don't have resilience. Because let me pull up a screenshot from ChatGPT. It says resilience in terms of personality privilege, demonstrating strength in the face of adversity or hardship, bouncing back from setbacks with determination and grace. A lot of people never bounce back. They just decide, all Indians are colorists, every black person's a colorist, all light-skinned women are colorists, they all think they're better than you. That means you lack resilience. If you're actively scared and running away from adversity, first of all, you will be at the bottom. I'm just going to keep it 100. You will be at the bottom if you are afraid of facing adversity, because anybody who achieves any success at all in any area has overcome some sort of adversity. They have had to have some sort of resilience. So any woman who lacks that, she is greatly lacking in her personality privilege, because when I think of a woman who's carefree, in order to be carefree, you actually have to be very resilient. Being carefree and feminine, it doesn't mean that you've never faced anything hard. It doesn't mean you've never had your heart broken. You've never experienced racism, colorism, texturism, or featureism. Every woman in this world has experienced some sort of ism that has harmed her. But the resilient ones are the ones who still are able to face the adversity as per the definition of resilience. You have strength in the face of adversity. No, you don't try to run away from it. You know how to face it and then let it roll off your back. And then you bounce back from the setback. And that's how you're able to be carefree. But do you have personality privilege? Are there any personality traits that you want to work on gaining for yourself? Do you feel like you have feminine personality privilege? Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.